Hi everyone, thank you very much for stopping by. Returning to the old world, today we are talking about attending events and tournaments. And I'll be giving my thoughts on preparing for them and what to do on the day from the standpoint of someone that doesn't attend a lot of these sorts of events. And these can be tips for really going to any gaming systems event, be it Warhammer the Old World or any other game that you could shake a stick at. Before we launch into the prep, just to say, if you do find this video useful, do consider subscribing and dropping a like. They are the most useful ways of helping a small channel such as this one, and also will help you keep informed around when new videos are dropping. Typically 1 or 2 are made a week. Subscribers will get a little dot, however, to show that videos have become available. So that aside, on with the show. And before we launch into any kind of preparation, I think we need to be aware of what kind of people we might be interacting with at a tournament. And I say this because tournament goers are a really broad church. And whilst we all share the same hobby in common, we're all war gamers, and in particular for an event, we're all going to be playing the same game, people are going to have a lot of different motivations for attending an event. So you need to be aware that you're probably going to come across people that want a different experience to you. Some people will just be looking to meet new people, play new people, maybe to see what other local metas look like, particularly if you've got people coming from a wide area to the particular event, seeing what they bring to the table, whether there's new ideas. Some people are maybe a bit time poor. They don't get the opportunity to play very often. So going to an event or a small local tournament, it's a really good opportunity to get 3, 5, 6, however many games in, when normally they'd only be able to get 1 or 2 occasionally. Some people are going to be there for a day out with their mates, have a couple of drinks, have a couple of games, kick back and just enjoy themselves. And some people are going to be turning out, they're there to win, which is absolutely fine. You're at a tournament, it's a competitive event. But some people will be really pushing hard in order to get the most out of each game points-wise as possible. So a whole slew of different types of motivations, different types of people you could be coming across. Let's talk prep. And prep for a tournament actually starts pretty much, I think, as soon as you've got your ticket, you've booked your accommodation if you're staying overnight, things like that. What do you need to do? Well, obviously, you need to choose your faction and build your army list. And once you've done that, I think it's important to use whatever time you've got in order to practice, to know your rules, to be able to make the tweaks you need to build your list, to have something you're familiar with and you think works well with your style of play. Within this, review any scenario information which the organisers have made available. Now, they might not have told you in advance what you're going to play, but a lot of tournaments do that. So practice the actual scenarios, practice the mission rules, have a good understanding of how your army is going to interact with those scenarios, regardless of what you end up playing against. This will really help you being able to get your games done on time. Now, unlike casual games where we can basically play for as long as we've got access to the table, when we turn up to event, games are played to a strict time layout. So you can't just stop, have a bit of a chat, go for a drink, have a vape, whatever it may be. You need to get your games done on time. And if you don't, you're going to be missing out on opportunities to score points and to complete your games. In fact, some tournaments will even insist that your game is played on an actual clock, a chess clock. If that's the case and you've not been practicing on a chess clock before, it is well worth doing that, I think, just to make sure that on the day there's not a new experience for you and it's all just part and parcel of playing the game. The other thing to think about as early preparation is thinking about the venue itself. Yes, you need to think about where it is, but also think about things like, are you going to be able to get food? Are you going to be able to get drinks? As we'll explore in a moment, this kind of stuff is going to be really important on the day. So we've done all our early prep. What do we do just before? So the night before the tournament. This is the time I would recommend you pack. What do you need? Think about everything you could possibly need on a game table. Your army, your rules, any counters, tape measures, all that sort of stuff. A tray for carrying models between tables as the day unfolds. I would suggest making a list of all of these things, and then as you put them into your bag, tick them off. The reason for this is, although it sounds pretty self-explanatory, you want to take out any of those stress moments, any of those, oh blimey, did I pack XYZ, having to stop and rummage through, all of that stuff, take it out. Days are tiring enough as it is without adding extra stress points. The night before, I'd also suggest just double check the directions to get to a venue if it's one you've not been to before, and have a look at any travel updates. So if you're getting public transport, for example, make sure there's no strikes, there's no engineering works, there's no road works, which you're going to throw a spanner in the works, so that you are planned out. This is how I'm going to get to the place, and I know I'm going to get there in good time. I'd also recommend making sure that your phone and any other electronic devices that you're going to be taking with you are fully charged. Again, this is really self-explanatory stuff, which I'm sure most of you will have thought of anyway, but in the general excitement of an event, it's something that might slip your mind. And it would be terrible if you turned up and you've got some important information stored electronically, which you suddenly can't access when you need it because you've run out of battery. This then takes us on to the day itself. I'd really recommend giving yourself plenty of time to travel to the venue. I think it's far better to get to the venue and have to take a walk around the block than it is to turn up sweating, stressed out because you're nearly missing registration time, and then having to rush to a table. Your opponent's already there, they're laid out ready, and then you're trying to catch up. Take the stress out of the event. It's tiring enough. There's enough going on as it is. Think about your clothing. Again, this is something that I'm sure a lot of you will be thinking about, but it's worth bearing in mind. You're going to be spending a lot of the day stood up, leaning over tables, things like that. So wear sensible shoes, wear sensible clothing, and also bear in mind, again, the venue. A lot of events, the organisers will pack in as many tables and as many people as they can in the allotted space. What this tends to mean is, even in the depths of winter, these places can get really warm. So you don't want to be overheating, really hot and sticky. Wear clothes, or at least have a lightweight clothing option available to you to make sure that you're comfortable throughout the day. And sort of on this sort of message, I'd also suggest to actually make sure you get a good breakfast in. You might not have tons of time to eat properly until the end of the event, and there's a lot of mental energy being used up. So a good breakfast is a good way to set you up for the event. Once the day kicks off, I would really recommend that you take opportunities to stay hydrated and to eat during the course of the event. Take opportunities when they arise to sit down as well, whether it be while your opponent's doing stuff that you don't need to interact with, or between games if you get the opportunity. Fatigue is a real thing, I think, particularly for people that aren't used to going to an event. If you go to a lot of events, you sort of get trained to it. It's a bit like going into the office, and the first time you started a job, you tend to get really tired, and over time you just get used to functioning in a particular way. If you don't go to a lot of events, which is your first event, you need to expect to get a bit tired. You're not just playing one game against your mate and you can take breaks as and when you like. You're playing strict time control games in rapid succession, and it's tiring. You're using a lot of mental energy thinking about all of the things you're doing, what your opponent's doing, how you want to interact, how you want to try and achieve your objectives. Staying hydrated, staying fueled up with energy is going to be really useful for maximising your performance. And the last thing you want to do is get hungry and a little bit grouchy and sort of ruin the experience for both you and your opponent. As an aside, talking about fatigue, I do remember going to a X-Wing tournament back in the days of first edition, little local event. But X-Wing, you played a lot of games in a day. They were relatively short games, but you played lots back to back over the course of a day. And I did play against someone who had a force with, it was a very good list, a lot of moving parts that needed to be used with a lot of accuracy in order to get the most out of them. I'd taken a force that, I think of the ships I'd taken, one of them needed quite a bit of thought. The others, they kind of just did stuff and I didn't have to worry about them too much. Now, in this particular game, my opponent's list, that it was far better than anything I had, but we were playing late in the day. I was, to an extent, submarining at this point, and my opponent and I, we were both tired, but my opponent was really tired because he'd had to put in so much thought into every single game he'd played. And actually, ultimately, that's what cost him the game in this circumstance. He was just so fatigued, he was making bad decisions, things were ending up in the wrong place, and it was allowing me to really capitalize on that. And I think this is a really good example of the importance of managing fatigue and making sure that you're as fresh as possible throughout the event. On this message, I'd also really talk about being organized. So making sure that you've got everything to hand, you can move swiftly between tables, if you've got cards with rules on them, make sure they're nicely accessible so you can get hold of them quickly. All these things just add to the ease and remove the stress burdens which will tire you out during the day, because it's mental energy you don't need to spend. I'd also suggest on the day itself is be realistic about what you're hoping to achieve. If you're going to set yourself goals, and if you're anything like me, you probably are, be realistic. If you don't play regularly, maybe you've not got a top meta list, don't expect to win the event, because that will only really lead to disappointment, particularly if you rock up and you get drawn against someone who's really good with a really strong list at game one, and they beat you convincingly. At this point, you know you can't win the event anymore, most likely, because the winner will almost certainly go through the event undefeated. Be realistic, set sensible goals, because otherwise you're going to get frustrated, you'll get disappointed. I've been to events before. I think the biggest event I went to with several hundred players, and over the course of the day, loads of people just dropped out. And at the end, this meant there were loads of people turning up to a game and they didn't have an opponent, and the organisers were just randomly pulling people together, which completely undermined the matching system to make sure people with similar win-loss rates were playing against each other, because they were just trying to funnel people into games at this point. Because I think to get to the second day of the competition, if you had lost more than one game, you definitely weren't getting there. If you'd lost one game, it was touch and go. So once people knew they weren't going to go to day two, they just dropped out, a lot of them without even telling the organisers. So it caused a lot of problems, but also really frustrated those people because they weren't getting the experience they'd hoped for. So what do I think are the most important 3 things about going to an event? Stay calm, stay collected. If you've got 2 people really pushing for a win, things can get a little bit tense. So remember, it's only a game, there's probably not even a mega prize on offer. Just stay calm. It's the best way of really relaxing and enjoying your day. And within that, everyone shares the same hobby. Just be chill. Be nice to people. You don't need to get involved in drama. And most importantly, have fun. It's what we're all there for. You want a game where yourself and your opponent, whatever happens on the table, come out of it, enjoy the experience, maybe get some learning points, have a good game, have a drink afterwards, that kind of thing. Whatever it may be you want to do, but just have fun. So that wraps up really my thought process around preparing for an event and what to do on the day itself. And these tips are largely divorced from what actually happens on the tabletop. That bit is all, of course, up to you. So I'll just wrap up by saying thank you very much for listening. If you've got this far and you've enjoyed the video and you've liked it, along with maybe some of the other videos in the back catalogue, do consider subscribing. As I say, best way of supporting a small channel such as this one. Costs you nothing and is a massive benefit for the smaller channels. Thank you once again. I am Return to the Old World. Have a great day.